Am I the asshole for asking my son and daughter-in-law for a copy of the key to the new house they bought? 2 weeks ago, my son Ethan, 27, and his wife Jess, 30, bought a small one-story house in the town we live in. After settling down, they invited us for a small party for the occasion. We sat for dinner and talked about the house a bit. Me, my husband, and Jess continued conversing after Ethan excused himself to take an important call. Jess showed me the original key to the house, and I asked if she made copies yet, and she said no. I said that she should and also give one copy to me as well. She looked at me funny and asked why she should, and I explained it's necessary in emergencies. She rudely said, I don't know what kind of emergency would require you having a key to our house. Sure wouldn't be a fire incident. She obviously didn't seem to have any idea that a fire incident wasn't what I meant, and I got offended by her sarcasm. I pointed out that it's not just her decision because this is my son's house as well. She smiled, trying to be polite, and stated that the only ones who contribute towards the house get a copy and that I don't need one anyway. She also assured me that my son will have the same answer for me, basically saying don't bother bringing this up to him because he'll tell you the same thing. But I did, and she spoke on his behalf the entire argument, repeating what she said over and over. She called me pushy and I called her rude and disrespectful. My husband and I left in a rush, and my husband went on about how paranoid and controlling I was.
My wife and I have been together for a long time. She's been the homemaker and I the breadwinner. We have 3 kids together. My wife's been responsible for basically everything that isn't bringing home the paycheck. I help her when I can, but by the time I get home, there isn't much to do. When the kids were younger, they were already in bed and she was waiting for me when I got home. She's balanced our checkbook and decided what goes into what account. She's done all the shopping for groceries, gifts, and home appliances. She has been responsible for taking our children to appointments, friends' houses, and after-school activities. She's been my confessor who I share all my pent-up feelings with and get things off my chest that I wouldn't do with anyone else. And I assume that she does the same with the kids, meaning she handles 100% of emotional labor and probably 75% of the housework. The kids don't have to do chores. She got the kids ready for school and put them to bed. She's woken me up, started the shower, made my breakfast, and ironed my suit and laid it out before she ties my tie, hands me my lunch, and kisses me goodbye. She's done this for over 20 years. I guess somewhere along the way, I stopped thanking her since I was so used to it. It wasn't intentional and I genuinely appreciate her, but I just didn't think to express it. About a week ago, she wasn't feeling well and didn't wake up before me, meaning I was basically screwed since I rely on her to get me ready in the morning. It's pathetic, I know, but it's just my routine and has been for decades. I managed to make it work and I was upset with her even though I realized I shouldn't have been. But I wasn't expecting to have to wake up on my own and get ready without her. It's sad, but it's all I know. Due to me expressing my displeasure over her not getting up in time, she has informed me that I'll be on my own for the unforeseeable future. Look, I made a mistake and was wrong for getting upset, but I feel like I do have the right to be angry since I rely on her for that. I got mad at my wife and now she has informed me that she will no longer be getting me ready for work in the morning. Am I the asshole?
For some context, about 24 years ago, I was violated by a close friend of mine and got pregnant by the encounter. I was inconsolable for months after the event. To make matters worse, I found out that I was pregnant at about 20 weeks, and where I lived at a time it was illegal to terminate after the first trimester. My husband had really been my rock and my support during that time, and I do not know how it would have ended up if not for him. He said that I could put it up for adoption, or I could keep the child and he would raise it like our other children. I decided to not give it up for adoption, but raising the kid was hard. I'm half Polish and half German, and he is half German and half Russian. We both have pale skin, light hair, and blue eyes, as well as being fairly tall. I'm about 178 centimeters, or around 5'10", and he's 191 centimeters, or about 6'3". However, our daughter Luna is about 160 centimeters, or 5'3", has dark hair and a brown complexion like her biological father. I often heard snide remarks about me being an unfaithful wife because it was obvious that she was not my husband's child. It was especially hard for me when Luna was young, because she looked so much like her dad. My husband took care of my daughter most of the time, since I had bad flashbacks whenever I saw her face from when I was violated. As she grew up, it died down a bit, but I would still get these horrible panic attacks when I saw her wearing boys' clothes and short hair. Since I was prone to having panic attacks, Luna ended up being closer to my husband than she was to me. Also, she often ended up getting a little more than her siblings from my husband, as some sort of compensation because of me. I never told her that she was the product of a non-consensual act, because I was too ashamed and my husband did not want her feeling different from her siblings. I often told her that me and her biological father got into an altercation but never spoke to one another ever again. About 2 years ago, she got one of those DNA test items and found out she had a relative in the system. Said relative got Luna in touch with her bi-dad, and they started talking despite my protests. He apparently wanted to speak to me about something he wanted to tell me, so Luna attempted to persuade me to speak with him. I made her aware that me and her father shouldn't ever be in the same room together. Now, Luna's getting married to a lovely young man. Some of the COVID restrictions have been lifted, so she's able to have a decent-sized wedding. The original plan was to have my husband walk her down the aisle, but he had gotten into a bad accident, leaving him in a wheelchair until his legs are strong enough to support his weight again. However, this is not her idea of a picture-perfect wedding day, so she invited her biological father to have the honor of being the bride's father. Her wedding invitation not only invited my offender, but she totally disrespected the man who raised her. Although I or a bridesmaid could have pushed him down the aisle, she thinks it would not fit the vibe of the wedding. My husband looked so shocked and upset that she would even think of this, but I was furious. I have a visceral hate for that man, and I let her know that I would not be anywhere near him. She told me that this is what she wants and there's no changing her mind, so I told her I will not be attending if he's there. She got upset and told me that I shouldn't hang on to the past, but I laid it into her that she doesn't know what happened between me and her biological father, so she shouldn't stick her nose where it doesn't belong. Though I feel terrible about what I said and how I said it, and I can't be blamed for her being born or not knowing what happened since I never told her, I still feel as though my wishes should be respected if I say I don't want to be in the same room as someone. I'm now okay with her contacting her father, I just do not want anything to do with him. Also, it's rude to replace your father with another man who you've barely known for 2 years because of something he couldn't control. Can anyone offer me a perspective that I am not catching? Has anyone ever dealt with this, and if so, how? Before I got married to my husband, I actually was very close friends with my offender. We grew up together in a small community, and our families were close. Our parents even wanted us to be together. He was always interested in me, but I didn't give him a chance until university. I broke it off with him and started dating my husband, but I never cut him off because we were very close. He invited me over to drink. This was normal for us. And when I started getting a bit tipsy, he violated me. I was very traumatized by the situation and tried to get him jailed, but I couldn't. He had a very good reputation, so everyone believed him, even my own mother, when he said I willingly came over and did it with him. I eventually stopped pursuing the case because of the social pressure, which only got worse when I found out I was pregnant. I eventually left the place with my husband and kids to live somewhere else. After I gave birth, my husband suggested therapy, but I was scared of being judged again, so I decided to bury it and try to forget about it. I just realized now that it was the worst way to go about this, but it's the only way I knew how to, honestly. Now on to the update. I decided that I should stop running away and tell her everything. I called her to come over and she did. I first apologized for yelling at her for her suggestion, because in her mind it was an innocent suggestion. I told her that I wasn't angry at her, but at how fast she was willing to replace her father because he was in a wheelchair, and that anger was compounded because she brought up her genetic father. I apologized again for acting childish and not like an adult. She asked me why I'm so against her genetic father being in the same vicinity as I am, and I just told her everything, from our initial friendship to her forced conception. She didn't believe me, like some of you predicted, but I can get a copy of the records of the court case and offered them to her if she needed a look. She looked stunned, like she wanted to believe me, but couldn't. I apologized for keeping all this from her because I didn't know how to bring it up. She told me she didn't believe me and would confirm with her genetic father, so I told her to take the time she needed to process all this. Later that day, she came again, crying and apologizing for not believing me. I held her and cried and apologized too. It was kind of therapeutic. We had a long chat and I did feel closer to her. When we were done, she said she wanted to take me out to a surprise to help me feel better in a couple of days, which I happily agreed to. I went to see her yesterday in this little restaurant with a patio that had a private pay-for-use area for a maximum of 4 people due to COVID. She ran up to me and gave me a hug. Then she led me to the patio, where her biological father stood. She told me he was here to apologize and start my healing journey. I just wanted to leave, but he grabbed my hand, and all those memories I tried to repress just came back out. I started having a panic attack and lost my balance, to which she tried to help me keep my balance, which worsened everything. I honestly don't remember how I left, but I ended up in my car just sobbing. I called my elder son to pick me up because I was not fit to drive at that moment. Today my daughter called me upset that I ruined her surprise, but I was extremely upset with her. I asked her why she did that when she knows everything that happened between me and him, and she tried to use the excuse of my healing journey, but I wasn't having it. She admitted that she wanted me to get used to him, because he's gonna be walking her down the aisle along with my husband, and we'll be doing the daddy-daughter dance. I told her that while I loved her and respect her decision to be with him, I'm not willing to be anywhere he is. She started complaining about how she wants all her family to be there.
Am I wrong for telling my sister that she should have aborted my niece when she had the chance? I grew up in a single-parent household with my mother and my half-sister Casey, who is 7 years younger than me. My mother struggled with drug abuse for the majority of her life, and as a result, I have no clue who my father is. Casey's father was also heavily into drugs and only stuck around for 3 years. I basically raised Casey because when my mom wasn't at work, she was either gone for days on end, holed up in her bedroom/bathroom doing drugs with whoever her boyfriend was at the time. I am now 31 and have no desire to have children, after spending much of my youth caring for Casey. Casey unfortunately followed in my mother's footsteps in that she began excessively drinking, smoking, partying, etc. She enrolled in a university that's known for being a party school, but dropped out during her first year year after getting pregnant with my niece. 14 weeks into Casey's pregnancy, we learned that the baby would likely be born with intellectual and physical disabilities. I am pro-choice and discussed abortion as an option with Casey, who at the time refused and assured me that she would love her baby no matter what disability she was born with. My niece is now 4 years old and is nonverbal with pretty severe cognitive delays and motor/sensory issues. My mother has been sober for about 5 years and has since come around to help out Casey with my niece. She feels bad about our poor upbringing and as a result enables Casey to continue partying and being an irresponsible parent. Casey is hardly ever around while my mother is left alone with my niece. She's pretty much become my niece's 24/7 caretaker. Both my mom and sister have asked that I help babysit from time to time, but I politely declined because I know nothing about caring for special needs children. Recently I learned that my mother is planning to move a few states away as her boyfriend would like to be closer to his family, meaning she will no longer be able to help take care of my niece. Now Casey has asked that I become my niece's godmother and that I move back to our hometown and in with her to help out. I declined because I know that what she really means is that she would like me to become my niece's primary caretaker. She then asked for me to compromise by having me pay for a home caretaker and for assisted living for when my niece turns 18. Again, I refused. My husband and I both have well-paying jobs, so technically we could afford it, but I'm sick of everyone rewarding Casey for her poor choices. This resulted in a screaming match between her and I, where in the heat of the moment, I told Casey that she should have gotten an abortion if she knew she was unwilling to step up and be a mother to a child with special needs. Now I am receiving daily texts from both her and my mother stating how terrible of a person I am and that if I truly cared about our family that I would help out. So, am I wrong here? Call CPS. That's my 2 cents. CPS.
Story time about how my boyfriend is bullying me into losing weight. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 months. He's a personal trainer, so he's really into fitness. When we started dating, I wasn't super fit, but I definitely was toned. Unfortunately, I got the Rona, so I got fired from my job because I couldn't work for 2 weeks. I was super sick and I really became depressed. I basically sat on my couch for those 2 weeks and ate a lot. Before I knew it, I had gained 7 pounds. When I finished my quarantine, I finally was able to see my boyfriend. And when he first came into my house to see me, he looked shocked. He looked me up and down and said, "Did you gain weight?" I said, "Yeah, I probably gained like 7 or 10 pounds. And then he asked me how I could let myself go like that. I told him I was totally by myself, cooped up in my apartment, and I had nothing else to do but eat. And that's when he said, and I quote, "Well, we need to get you back into the gym to get you in shape again, because I don't want a fat girlfriend." I laughed because I thought for sure he's joking, but then he said, "Stop laughing, it's not a joke." My stomach sank and I felt like I was going to poop my pants. I started to cry and he told me that I shouldn't be a baby, that he's allowed to be honest with me about stuff like this because it has to do with him being attracted to me. So in other words, he wasn't attracted to me anymore. That's when he went into my room, picked out a pair of leggings and a sweatshirt, told me to get dressed, and took me straight to the gym. He made me exercise for an hour and a half. Instead of getting upset about it, I decided to just take it in stride and go with it. I thought maybe I can get in the best shape of my life now that I have a trainer boyfriend. As we were working out, he kept commenting on my thighs. He said that they needed to have a gap and that instead of being muscular, I was super soft. Again, I started to cry. Part two of how my boyfriend is bullying me into losing weight. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. After he told me that I was soft at the gym, I started to cry again. I told him that I needed to be more sensitive towards my feelings and that I didn't want to be in a relationship if he was going to be like this toward me. That's when he said that he didn't want to be in a relationship with me because I had gained weight and that's not what he had signed up for. That's when he told me I needed to look around and see all the fit women in the gym and that he could have any of those girls. I was in utter shock. I just couldn't believe that he was talking to me like that and I had never seen that side of him before. The more I cried, the angrier he got, but finally he said, "Okay, I'm sorry. Let's just do 20 minutes on the Stairmaster." That's when I told him I didn't want to work out anymore. Mind you, he had already had me at the gym for an hour and a half. That's when he said, "Fine, I'll take you home, but I'm coming back to the gym." The whole way home, he stayed quiet and gave me the cold shoulder while I cried. He pulled up to my house and I got out of the car and he literally sped away as fast as he could. He proceeded to give me the cold shoulder for the next 2 days. I finally broke and texted him telling him we needed to speak. That's when he said we could talk at the gym. I agreed and he went to pick me up. But the first thing he wanted to do at the gym was put me on a scale and weigh me. I told him absolutely not. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how my boyfriend is bullying me into losing weight. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. He was trying to force me to get on the scale so that he could weigh me because he wanted to see how much weight I could lose in 1 week. I kept saying no, but then he said fine. Then he handed me a piece of paper and said, "Here's the diet I want you to follow for the next 4 weeks." I grabbed the piece of paper and just put it in my purse. Then he has the audacity to get mad at me for not even looking at the diet. He said that I was disrespectful and that I didn't even look at the diet and that it took him hours to write all of that out. And then he said the thing that crushed my heart. He would be embarrassed to take me around his friends and family with the way that I looked. As soon as he said that, I ran out of the gym and walked home. Of course, he followed me and told me to get in the car, but I refused. I finally got to my house and he called me. I told him I needed some time away from him and that his behavior was extremely toxic, and that if I didn't have a problem with my weight, neither should he. That's when he said that he was accustomed to only being with girls that were super fit and even had abs. He told me that at first he wasn't convinced if he should date me, but I had a really pretty face, and that he was willing to overlook the fact that I wasn't super fit. He's a total narcissist, but I'm still in love with him. I tried to break up with him, but he said no, and he's still insisting that we just go to the gym together together at least. I don't even know how to respond to him. What should I say?
Am I wrong for telling a man he was too old to have a toddler? I, 51 female, recently went on a date with a 54-year-old male. I knew he had 2 kids, but while we were eating, he tells me their ages, 32 female and 3-year-old male. That's a deal breaker to me. At my age, with grown kids, 25 and 26, the last thing I want to be bothered with is a man with a toddler and all the potential drama. The mom is 30. I went on with the date because I was having fun. When it was over, I had every intention of letting things just fade away. Yes, I can be passive-aggressive. Well, he called a couple of days later wanting to go out again. I tried the whole I'm not ready thing, but he kept trying. Finally, I told him that the fact that he has a toddler is a deal breaker. Too much possible drama, and I'm way too old for that. Hint, hint. He told me I was being hypocritical since I was a single mom. I said a single mom of 2 grown kids. He kept repeating himself, and I kept repeating myself. Finally, I told him that having a baby at 51 shows a stunning lack of judgment that I don't need in my world. He was quiet for a minute, told me that was a messed up thing to say. He told me I should have told him that before he paid for my dinner and that it was a B move, then hung up. So, am I wrong here? He just butthurt because you called him out because he was being an irresponsible adult and having a baby at 51. Bah.
Okay, so I don't know if you're still taking paranormal stories for a future episode, but I figure I send in my experience. So my freshman year, I was in a triple dorm with 2 girls who I genuinely did not get along with. However, we are all united on the front that something weird/spooky was happening in our room. We were on the 2nd story of our dorm building, and often we would begin to hear Jack in the Box music. We would go investigate with all 3 of us to see if anyone in the hallway was playing music or outside our window, but never found anyone. This would happen frequently. Other times, we would all be watching something on the television we shared, and suddenly, books would fall from the shelves they had been on, and the TV would glitch. One time while watching TV, it turned itself off, and the TV stand shook, and the flat screen fell over. After a few occurrences like this, we decided to tell our RA about our weird experiences together because we did not want to seem crazy, and she informed us that lots of people on the floors above us, but in the same room, had reported similar happenings to their RAs. The freakiest happening didn't come until we shared with our RA though. Our dorm room doors were on the hydraulic hinges, so no one could slam the door and they would shut slowly behind. This meant that no one could pull the door shut quickly. It simply couldn't be done. Every night we all triple checked the door being locked before bed because of how bad all of our anxiety was. On one night after we had all checked on the door and gone to lay down in our lofted beds, the door slammed open and was slammed shut again just as quickly. We all 3 screamed because it shocked and terrified us from not only the noise, but realization it should not have been physically possible due to the door being locked and the hinges the door used. Our screams were so loud that our RA and other people on our floor ran to see what was wrong and tried to open our door. It was locked again, just as it had been when we checked it before the incident. After the incident, we all struggled to live there. It was scary and my anxiety increased 100%. Small things happened here and there, like the Bluetooth speaker turning on and playing creepy classical music.
Oh no. Shut up.
Despite my roommate being the only one connected to it with a password. Nothing like the door incident ever happened again, but my RA did share a picture of the ghost we all believed was haunting us from one of the residents that lived above us. I attached the picture.
5 hours and questioned me. I told him that if he was going to cheat on me, then I was definitely going to cheat on him too. I know that this is incredibly toxic, but it was the only thing that I could think of to make him change his ways. That's when he finally decided that he would try to stay faithful to me for as long as he possibly could. But what do you know, 2 weeks later, he was already cheating on me again. He had a really rowdy group of friends and they would always go out to bars, so this is how he met these women. Of course, he'd tell them that he was single and these girls had no idea that he was married. So it's not like I could get mad at them. My husband is close to his brother and they would always hang out. When his brother got engaged and he met his fiance, I could tell that my husband was eyeing her from head to toe. That's when I told him that he needed to stay away from her, not only for me, but for his brother. And he swore that he would never ever do that to his own brother. But he could definitely do it to his wife, of course. We would see his brother and his fiance all the time. We would have dinners together, and that's when I started noticing that she was also staring at my husband. I would catch them constantly looking at each other. Eventually, I told my husband's brother, my brother-in-law, about the concerns I had of his fiance with my husband. He laughed and even actually got mad at me for suggesting such a thing. I told him that he would regret it if he didn't take action now. A few weeks before the wedding, my husband started acting really strange. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my husband ran away with his brother's wife on their wedding day. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. I noticed my husband was acting really strange before the wedding. He started going out every single night. He wouldn't tell me where he would go, and he would leave his phone in the house. Sometimes he'd come back the following morning. A few days before the wedding, I decided to confront him about it. I knew that I didn't want to stress him out before the wedding, but at the same time, I couldn't live like this. I had this worried, sick feeling in my stomach every single night, and I would barely sleep knowing that he was out doing God knows what. When I asked him what was going on, he told me that I was overreacting and that he was just playing poker with his friends at his friend's house. I told him to call his friend on speaker so that he could confirm his story. That's when he threw a tantrum. He started slamming doors and cabinets in the kitchen, telling me that I was overreacting and that I needed to let him live his life. And he even mentioned divorce for the first time ever. He said he didn't want to be tied down to such a jealous woman. That's when I broke. I literally pulled out a list of all the women that he had cheated on me, the ones that I knew of. And I told him that he had broken my heart over 10 times that I knew of. And that I knew he would never stop, and that the only thing that was fair for me was to at least have him be honest. That's when he hugged me and started to cry. And that was the first time I had seen him show any emotion towards my pain. He began to apologize and told me that he never meant to hurt me that way. We hugged and we just watched a movie and everything was back to normal. But I knew that nothing was back to normal and that he was hiding something. Finally, the day of the wedding comes and he is stressed. From the moment he woke up, he was pacing in the house, sweating. He even had 4 cups of coffee. I asked him what was wrong and he said that he was just nervous for his brother. We finally head to the church where everyone is already waiting. And when we get there, the first thing I see is the bride. She's standing outside the church with the suitcase. Without even turning to look at me, my husband tells me to get out of the car quickly. Part 3 is up. Story time about how my husband ran away with his brother's wife on their wedding day. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. My husband has been a serial cheater for the 5 years that we've been married. He started cheating on me 2 weeks after we got married. And no, he never bothered to hide any of it. Anytime I found out about an affair, I would ask him and he would be honest and tell me that yes, he was having an affair, but that he would end it. But of course I knew that once a cheater, always a cheater. So I never ever trusted him after that. I wanted to even the playing field, so I decided to have my own affairs. You see, I wanted to give him a taste of his own medicine so that he could see what it felt like. And he actually got psychotic when he found out that I cheated on him the first time. He even locked me in a room for 5 hours and questioned me. I told him that if he was going to cheat on me, then I was definitely going to cheat on him too. I know that this is incredibly toxic, but it was the only thing that I could think of to make him change his ways. That's when he finally decided that he would try to stay faithful to me for as long as he possibly could. But what do you know, 2 weeks later, he was already cheating on me again. He had a really rowdy group of friends and they would always go out to bars, so this is how he met these women. Of course, he'd tell them that he was single, and these girls had no idea that he was married. So it's not like I could get mad at them. My husband is close to his brother and they would always hang out. When his brother got engaged and he met his fiance, I could tell that my husband was eyeing her from head to toe. That's when I told him that he needed to stay away from her, not only for me, but for his brother. And he swore that he would never ever do that to his own brother. But he could definitely do it to his wife, of course. We would see his brother and his fiance all the time. We would have dinners together, and that's when I started noticing that she was also staring at my husband. I would catch them constantly looking at each other. Eventually, I told my husband's brother, my brother-in-law, about the concerns I had of his fiance with my husband. He laughed and even actually got mad at me for suggesting such a thing. I told him that he would regret it if he didn't take action now. A few weeks before the wedding, my husband started acting really strange. Part 2 is up.
Am I the asshole for uninviting my boyfriend to Christmas? I, 39 female, have been dating my boyfriend, 51 male, for about 2 years now. We live separately but see each other almost every day. I have 2 daughters, ages 18 and 13, and my boyfriend doesn't have any kids. He had a marriage and a long-term relationship before me, both with women who had kids, and he helped raise them. He's been lately pushing for the relationship to progress, so I bought him a stocking and an ornament to hang at my house. We've also discussed cohabitation. Well, last night we were together and he said something about wanting to watch the football game on Christmas. Fine, not a problem. Then he added in about how children are to be seen, not heard during this time. Not funny. I asked what my
Never let my dad drive my car. Simply because he already has 2 cars. Why do you need to take my car? There is no logical reason why you would need to take my car if you already have 2. Okay? Well, this morning my dad walks into my room and it's like 6 in the morning. And he tells me that he needs to use my car for something. I don't know what, but I was so tired. I didn't even question it. I was like, yeah, you can take my car. Literally, even right now, I don't know why he took my car, but he took my car somewhere. And I wish I knew what he said, and I was like, no, you cannot take my car, because now I'm in a lot of trouble. So basically, I keep, C's in my car. You know what I'm talking about. It's protection. I keep protection in my car. Not for me, but for my friend. I always keep a pack of protection in my car for my friend. I hope you know what I mean by saying it's protection in my car. Like, I think they start with a C, and they're used for protection. And if a dad finds some in their daughter's car, they're gonna get in trouble. I had some protections just like sitting right here, right next to the driver's seat, because why, like, I don't know, they're just there. Well, when I fully woke up this morning around 10 in the morning, I walk in the kitchen and they're sitting on the kitchen counter. The box is sitting on the kitchen counter. I haven't talked to him since. I don't know what to tell him. I don't want to talk about it. Like, truly, they were not mine. They were for my friends. But, like, is he gonna believe that? No. I don't want to talk about it. I feel like that's, like, honestly, he should have just minded his business. Like, I'm old. My birthday is in 2 days. I'm gonna be even older. And, like, at least he didn't find a positive pregnancy test. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta pick and choose, you know, like, oh. So yeah, when he gets home, let's see if I get kicked out. Let's see if he brings it up. I put the box in my closet, so it's no longer on the kitchen counter. But, I mean, I'm speechless.
Storytime about how my mom planned to kill me. Yes, I said my mother. So a little background information, I was 16 years old and I was in 11th grade. Now it's not like my mom hated me my whole life, because there was a time whenever she was super happy and she did really love me. Well, it all started whenever my dad had left her. She went into this deep depression, she quit her job, she wouldn't get out of bed in the morning, she stopped cooking, stopped cleaning, and she always blamed me because she thought it was my fault that our dad left, when in reality my dad still texts me all the time asking how I'm doing. All of a sudden, a flip switch, my mom started cooking again, going to work. I never really ate her food because it low-key looked weird. But one day I came home from school and saw her putting rat poison in my food. And I wish I was kidding. But she's fucking crazy. So I said hi, but she didn't answer me. So I tapped her on the shoulder. She turned around and put a knife up to my neck. I ran out the door, called the police. They arrested her, and now I am happily living with my father and my non-crazy.
Storytime about when the candidate I had to interview was my high school bully. I work for a fairly large company in the tech industry. I worked there for 5 years now, and I have a fairly high up role in management. Over the last few weeks, I got roped into helping build a new team within the company and was assigned to do multiple interviews. This was fairly short notice for me, so my job was only to do the interview and give my impressions of the candidate and the results of my interview. The company is also just back to doing in-person interviews, so the process is even more wonky as of now. When I received the list of candidates for the day, I saw the name of a man we'll call Brad. It had been over 15 years since I had last seen him, but I could never forget the face of the man who made my high school years a living hell. Brad was your typical bully jock. I was an overweight theater kid in AP Math and Science, and you can see where this is going. Those were the worst years of my life, and Brad was one of the contributing causes to that. So to see him in the candidates here was a shock to me. I didn't believe it at first, but when Brad walked in for the interview, I knew I was face to face with the man who bullied me in high school. At first, Brad didn't recognize me, but as we sat down, he remembered who I was. He tried to play buddy-buddy with me, pretended that we were friends in high school, and I played along. I did the interview, and he did okay. Nothing standout, but middle of the pack. He made a joke about how I would get him the job, right? I laughed along, and he left. I finalized the interviews yesterday. I wrote Brad a scathing review, downplayed everything good about him, and exaggerated his flaws. I also wrote in that he tried to coerce me into giving him a good review because he was an acquaintance in high school. It's been 15 years since I graduated high school. I'm an entirely different person than I was then, but for some reason, I was dragged back to those days and I don't know how to feel.
My best friend Pam, female 22, started dating my male 22 high school bully. The fallout. Original post. Just as the title said, I, male 21, have a girl, let's call her Pam, female 22, I considered to be my best friend for the last 3 years. Pam has seen me go through a lot, especially after my family disowned me for not forgiving my cousin for hooking up with my then girlfriend 4 years ago. Pam was the one to help me through all that, and I genuinely thought she was someone who would never hurt me. But here I am. Last night she was hanging around my apartment and we were drinking. She's not good with it, so she got loose and admitted to being in a relationship with my high school bully. All of us were in the same class, so she knows the kind of things he, male 22, has done to me. Especially after my family disowned me. He got even meaner as my cousin was a part of his group. He and his gang of lackeys always physically and mentally mistreated me. I filed a complaint with the school, but we all know how helpful they are in these cases. Moreover, since I did not have my parents by my side, nothing was done to them and my life was made even hellish. Pam was the only one who kept me together, so I started living with her parents after I was disowned. So she knows firsthand what kind of torment that person put me through. Back to the topic. I don't think she immediately realized what she had admitted to. I went to sleep in my spare bedroom. I was too shocked to sleep, so I went to stay with a college friend. Pam must have realized what she confessed to last night, and have since bombarding my phone with calls and texts. My friend took my phone away and I'm using his phone to type this post. Apologies for any mistakes. I am honestly thinking of cutting her out at this point. She means a lot to me, but I just can't be around her anymore. But I don't know whether I'm being unreasonable here. Can someone help me? Brother's girlfriend thinks I bullied her in high school. I don't remember her, and her story seems off. But I can't come to Christmas unless I apologize. My brother Jack is dating Jess. I met her in summer and she said we'd gone to secondary school together. She seemed upset I didn't remember her. So I apologized and she said it was fine, and then she walked away. I'm engaged to a guy I went to high school with and still in touch with a friend from school, so I messaged both of them and asked them if they remembered Jess, and neither did, so I figured that Jess just wasn't in my classes and that's why I couldn't place her. That night, Jack messaged saying I really upset Jess once again. I was like, again? It says that Jess says I used to bully her. I'm not going to say I was a great person in high school. I had lots of friends, but I was going through a lot of crap, so I could be nice but could also often be just a raging witch. I never targeted or tormented anyone, and I truly do not think it crossed into bully territory, but I could be very rude and sarcastic. I was definitely not an a-hole, but bully is a bit much in my opinion. Jack said I had to text him an apology so he could show it to Jess, so I sent a generic apology text because I don't know what I actually did, and could only assume I was an a-hole to Jess at some point. Jack called me out on it being generic and said I needed to be specific. I told Jack that I didn't remember Jess. So if she wants a specific apology, she needs to tell me what I am apologizing for. Jess says I stole her boyfriend, gave her an eating disorder, and stopped her getting into her dream university. And here is where the story gets sketchy, because the guy Jess claims to have been dating at the time was a liar who told people we hooked up when we didn't. As for the eating disorder, I was a witch, but I would never encourage someone to develop an ED, as I had an eating disorder myself and BDD. So I was not about to make someone else feel bad about their body when I felt like crap about mine. As for the university, Jess says I made her fail an exam, and failing it kept her out of uni. I have literally no idea what she means. I'm also pretty sure that Jess and I went to different sixth forms, and sixth forms are where you do A-levels, which are the ones that get you into uni. So I have no idea how it's possible for me to have messed up her A-levels when we weren't at the same school. But bottom line is that she believes that I am personally responsible for all of this. Jack says that Jess said that where she's at in life now is all down to me bullying her. I still don't remember any of it. And I actually feel like I remember less with every new piece of info she gives me because it just seems
The woman I married is not the woman I have loved the most. I have been with my wife for 14 years. She is an amazing spouse, partner, and mother. She is a great woman and I'm happy with the beautiful family we've made. That being said, my one true love is a woman I was with right before I met my wife. This woman and I dated for 3 years. She changed my life with her love. She introduced me to so much. When we were together everything was electric. I could listen to her talk for hours and just enthralled by her. She was the only person I trusted enough to pour my heart out to. Even my wife I can't do this with. She was my perfect match. Compatible in every way. No one has made me laugh like her, made me feel pure unadulterated happiness as her, and I have never been with a lover that I have felt as physically and emotionally connected as her. If there are soulmates, she was mine. In the short time we were together we planned out our lives, together forever. Unfortunately, she needed to leave the country. Her parents were in an accident, killing her father and leaving her mother in need of care. I was serving military commitment fresh out of college and I couldn't go with her. We tried to make it work, but when it became clear we wouldn't be together for another 3 years, she became more withdrawn after the accident and resented me for not being able to be with her. I could feel the separation was slowly destroying us, so I set her free. It broke me, but it seemed like the best thing for both of us. I don't think I'll ever forget our time together. As much as I love my wife, I know the love between us is not as real as me and my ex's love. I married my wife out of convenience and I grew to love her. A few years back I got into contact with my ex again. She is married too with kids, but she has also never forgotten and is still in love with me and wishes things could have been different. We talk sometimes, nothing is ever inappropriate. I of course would choose my wife and family over her any time, but if I saw her in person again, I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't be worried something inappropriate might happen.
It's in the morning that you find some peace. It's in the small mistakes that you find your way to live. It's in the morning breeze that you find some peace. It's in the small mistakes that you find your way. It's in the morning.